Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, and with me, finally, is my entire expert panel. How are you guys?
Good.
Well,
Finally, we're
pretty
all
good.
here.
Yeah. So nice to all be back in one room. Tomorrow, thankfully, you're feeling better. Daniel, today we had a little
Scare?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's literally like I went to like a party like last night, and it's like, oh, sorry, professor, in case you watch this, but I literally was like sitting on an ottoman, and like I guess I had like minor back spasms before in the past, but I literally just like get up from the ottoman, and I'm like, I'm like, oh my god, and I basically just like had to like do some like stretches and shit. It was like. It was pretty fucked up, but it's okay. It's okay. I literally, like, and I'm just pissed off just today because I was like, all right, I'm going to go to class. Like, I'm totally going to do it. Like, let's do it. And then as soon as I get there, like, I explained I explained what happens to the professor, and she's like, honestly, just go to the walk-in. Just go to, like, she's a real one, you know? She's a real MVP about that. So shout out to Professor Anderson. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's good to know that you have professors that actually care about.
Well, professors
students'
want us to
health and-
succeed, you know?
Yeah.
Not like they're not like high school teachers where they're like, oh, fuck you or something like that. Like,
Ostensibly, they want us to
Yeah.
succeed.
Can you go to the bathroom? You
I don't know, can
So,
you?
so let's get to the show now. Luckily, we're all, hopefully healthy. Now, as per Spirit Live rules and regulations, all opinions expressed are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. So this is probably going to be our saddest weekly update because the three stories are pertaining to, sadly, mass killings. The first one that is the biggest in the media right now is the Christchurch mass shooting terrorist attack on two mosques. We've seen this happen before. We've seen it in Charleston, South or North Carolina. I'm not sure which one, but Charleston,
South Carolina, I think.
a terrorist
Doesn't
shot
matter.
up.
I think it was South.
Yeah.
South, shot up a church. Then we had the synagogue massacre in Pittsburgh, followed by this Christchurch shooting. And then our second weekend update is that yesterday or 2 days ago, there was a Philippines church bombing, two bombs in a church.
In a Christian church?
Yeah.
Or Catholic church?
Catholic church. And then not a religious issue, but there was a shooting on a Dutch tram. Just yesterday.
It wasn't a jewelry robbery or something along those lines. I think is.
What? So they went to the
No, I think
metro
that
or
was a
something?
terrorist attack.
Was
Yeah?
it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Damn.
So.
So
That's the one like I don't know the most about, but I'm definitely gonna do some research about that after.
Well, the Dutch tram just came in this morning. I just saw it this morning.
Oh, okay.
But the Philippines church bombing was last night. I saw on the news. And obviously the Christchurch mass shooting was about 3-4 days ago.
Yeah.
Let's dissect this. It's a growing trend that there's shootings and killings in places of worship. How did we get to this point?
Honestly.
You know what it is, and I just find it really fucked up. And I really didn't think that it was actually going to happen, but it's just like a massive increase in white supremacy that's happened. And it's like I never took it seriously, like maybe like the last couple of years ago, because it's like it only happened every now and then, and stuff like that. But when you actually like this particular person, like we'll just call him piece of shit. There we go. But this piece of shit, he basically like wrote out a manifesto that's trying to like explain like what he is and what he stands for. Apparently, he called himself some sort of eco-fascist that supports China but loves Trump at the same time. And it's like the sole purpose of this was to create a further divide in race relations, and I think that's pretty fucked up, because like I 100% like I can be 100% honest that I definitely had some negative preconceived notions about Muslim people before I actually got to know some. But like once I came here to university, like I met so many great people. I met Shiroz, he's a solid dude. I recently became friends with this Muslim girl named Sarwat. She's amazing. Like actually like during the DC trip, like, and I met a new friend as well. Like in that picture I have with AOC, her name's Sobia. There, I said it right. She's from Chicago, and it's like, yeah, when you're younger, you don't get that stuff, but it's like when you actually talk to them, you get to know them, you just They're just like you and me. They're regular people. They just want to live, and the last thing that should happen to them is be feared of persecution, especially at their place of worship.
Well,
That's the most fucked up thing.
That's the problem. Excuse me. I'm still getting over my cold. That's the problem with ignorance is that, when you don't know and you're taught something and, you're learning, you're hearing from people who have these like racist or xenophobic like mindsets, like it gets passed on generation to generation, unfortunately. So like it's a mix of like being ignorant and a mix of just like, I guess not, I don't know. It's once you meet people and know people and have a more diversified friends group and all that kind of thing, you stop having that, I guess, like closed-minded mindset.
Yeah, 100%.
But I just don't get how. I mean, I don't understand how someone could kill anybody, but I especially don't understand how someone could go into a place of worship and kill people like that. Like
it's
that
just disgusting,
yeah.
and especially the Christchurch, terrorist. He live streamed the whole freaking thing
Yeah, that's
on
ridiculous.
Facebook.
Did you guys see it?
No, I didn't want to watch it.
You know what's
I did watch it.
interesting?
Not
You know
People
what's
were sharing it.
Yeah, people were sharing it. There were 1.5 million shares on Facebook. There were 300,000 individual uploads of the video.
Wow.
And
Facebook and Twitter and all these people are scrambling just to take it down. Yeah.
Yeah, and Facebook said it got all of them down in about 24 hours. But the mere fact that people are re-uploading this video, why? What purpose does it serve? And it's interesting because, like,
honestly, like I kind of, it's like
you
I don't
want to see it.
It's not that I want to see it. I watched it, but it's like the freedom of information, like to like
That's
know,
true.
like to know that like something so heinous that like if we should be able to see that in the same way that if it was documented, I would have wanted to see the massacres of Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to see like any type of massacre and stuff like that. People need to know exactly how fucked up this situation is.
And
You don't have to watch it, but if you want to and you feel like to get a better understanding, like after I watched it, it literally looked like the airport scene from Modern Warfare 2. I shit you not.
Yeah,
I
it
shit
did.
you not, bro. It was insane.
That's the whole thing with terrorists, right? They're trying to invoke fear in people.
Yeah.
So I think that's like kind of why you don't want to be circulating this information and you don't want to be, like sharing the like from his perspective, from the person who did it, because then you're just like giving more, I guess, agency to him. Whereas at this point, it's not about, the video of him killing people. It's about the fact that, this guy went and killed 50 people who were praying in a mosque, in 2 mosques. So
yeah, and I don't think it's right to just share it in general. I don't think there's anything wrong with watching it or having the curiosity of wanting to see it. And I think that the video being available is like I would never recommend that anyone watch it because it is terribly disturbing. But I did watch the whole thing, and I think maybe I'm desensitized or something. But
100%.
it was still very disturbing, and I think that. Then
I
again,
had to put my phone down for a quick
yeah,
minute.
and I think I watching it was as disturbed as anybody else would be, but I do think that there is a certain level of desensitization that we all have, not just me, that we all have from how much goes on in how many violent acts are carried out that we see on the news all the time, even if we don't see the actual violence itself.
And it's
Uh,
The manifesto, though, I do think people should read. Because I
that's
think
where
it
I
is,
was saying the stuff where he calls himself some eco-fascist or something.
and
What,
I
you
read the
it?
whole
Yeah.
manifesto, and I think it is important for people
you read
to...
the 75-page manifesto?
Well, there was somebody had compressed it to just have all the like
Main
the
points?
questions, the interview part, which was like the main part of it. The rest of it was just rambling, but there was the interview part, which was the main focus of the manifesto. And
What do you mean? He was being interviewed by
he
someone?
interviewed himself.
Oh, okay.
And, it really addressed all the questions that people ask after an act like this, because people always have the same questions.
Yeah.
Why'd you do this? Is he a terrorist?
He calls himself
a terrorist. Why a mosque? Are you a racist? Are you an Islamophobe? Are you a white supremacist? Are you a homophobe? What do you think about climate change? And stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
how is that relevant to this? Like climate change?
Because I think
Because the
idea
Muslims
was,
are causing climate change.
Well,
That's what he's saying. That's how fucked up
no,
his ideas are.
Oh my god.
what he was saying was
This guy's
he didn't want
crazy.
people
Hot take.
making any assumptions about his political beliefs, so he just
Okay.
wanted to get all his political beliefs out there. And it was an interesting read, and I personally do not like to not know the motive after something like this happens. Like Las Vegas still bothers me because why we still don't know, and we'll probably never know.
That was
why
a white
that
guy, right? Just some dude.
It was a white guy, yes. Why he killed all those people in Las Vegas, and we'll never know. And that bothers me because I think in knowing why these things happen, we can take the steps to mitigate them, not prevent them necessarily, but hopefully mitigate and maybe even prevent them.
Yeah, it's funny though because I think was it maybe the day of or the day after, like the Australian senator posted something basically blaming Muslims.
Oh yeah, I heard
Yeah,
about
I
that.
saw that.
For this attack on Muslims, and I'm like you know the Nick Young meme when you're like that, you know, like what the fuck, or the no correlation thing. I'm like,
Yeah,
Like,
it has nothing to do with each
yeah,
other.
it's nothing to do with each other, and I'm just happy because there's a video of some kid, like a proud Aussie dude, and he just gets a nice egg on his head and stuff like that. But then the senator, he comes up and he starts like punching him and starts pushing him and shit. And I'm like, you're an idiot, bro. Like,
I mean, to be fair, I would have punched somebody too.
no, it's,
Yeah.
You can't say you wouldn't have.
No, like, no, it's not that though. Like it's a result of your shitty words and your actions from that letter, though. Like, it's a time of mourning. It's a time of grieving.
It was a terribly distasteful letter. Right after shooting. I mean, you can.
And then Milo posted it. So after Milo posted it, I'm like, nah, like I'm done with you, bro. Like I can't. No, it's like.
I mean, also, sorry.
I don't like the notion that you can't politicize tragedies, but I do think that there is a certain period where you do have to leave the politics out of things for the mourning. Because, I mean, if you can't politicize a tragedy, that does set a precedent, because a lot of the time tragedies call for political action.
Well, that's what the the New Zealand Prime Minister wants to do, right? She's like immediately like taking action with legislation.
Well, didn't they what was it? They passed some things that like stricter gun laws within 2 days or something like that.
Well, that's what Australia did after they had like a massive massacre in the 90s, right? So.
No, but also I think something that was like along with what you were saying, if you looked on Twitter at all these different world leaders, what they said, like Donald Trump, and not that he's whatever, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't even mention the word Muslim, like as if it wasn't a, I guess like a religiously discriminatory motivated event, that kind of thing. So I think that also goes to show a problem in how we are calling these types of things out. Like, this wasn't just, okay, this guy went to, a random place and it happened to be Muslims. Like, it was specifically targeted. And, there's a huge rise in hate crimes against, religious minorities. And that's something that, if you can't call it by its name, and if you can't, like, specify and talk about who the victims are in the situation, we're just in a really bad position.
Yeah. And that applies to everything, like even similar situation, like at the Holocaust Memorial in Canada. There's no mention of Jews in the plaque, and it's like, okay,
so what are you commemorating?
Who are you? Like, obviously,
well, it wasn't only Jews in the Holocaust,
but the majority were Jews.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. Call it what it is. This was an attack on Muslims.
Yeah.
Although I do think Maxime Barnier's statement was the best, which was, I mean, he didn't have a statement, and when he was called out for it, he said, this kind of thing happens all over the world all the time, and you want me to make a statement on this one thing. Why were you not calling for me to make a statement when Nigerian Christians were killed on the same day?
Yeah.
Why were you not calling for me to make a statement when churches were attacked in Europe? That kind of thing. And
well, I think also it's because it's in a developed world, in a developed country, right? That's why it takes more precedence for the mainstream media to cover it, right? If something's gonna happen in France, like Paris, right? Immediate coverage. The Philippine stuff, like I didn't even see that much coverage on it because it's part of the global South. Right?
I think though it's not necessarily just the location. I think the fact that it's Christians, and I feel personally that Christians and tragedies that happen to Christians aren't as big in the media as for, say, Muslim or Jewish.
I agree, and I mean, I might be biased, but I do certainly see that, and I don't want people to sensationalize attacks against Christians more. I don't want them covered more necessarily.
Equal coverage.
I just, I think that there is a problem with a asymmetrical coverage of attacks based on who the victim is. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should.
I don't think it's like that on purpose. Like, you think that the media is purposely doing that?
I do.
No, I think
just
it's because of the social
way-
media thing though.
I
Because
think-
if you
I
live
think it's
streamed
just that
it.
we're like the main media outlets that you're hearing from are westernized media sources. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's-
of course,
but
in the
if
Middle
they're-
East, the Middle Eastern media outlets, you're hearing more about what's happening there or in the surrounding areas.
But if these same Western media outlets are reporting about shootings that happen to Jews and to Muslims around the world,
Yeah.
but they're not talking about the Christian ones, then it is a matter of them
And
purposely doing it.
I do completely agree. Well, I mostly agree because I think it is natural for us to care more about things that happen in New Zealand, Australia, Western Europe,
Yeah.
The UK, the States, whatever, more than the global South and somewhere like the Philippines. But I also think that when there's a demand to make a statement, give your condolences, and I personally I don't put statements out for tragedies on social media because
What is there to say?
there's what is there to say?
Yeah.
It's sad, and we all know that it's sad. And maybe if you're in a
Yeah.
position of power, it might be
That's different, though.
It might be tasteful to put out a
Well,
statement.
not even
but-
position of power. Like, if you have friends, people who feel targeted now. Like, I know people. Like, I know for myself when the whole Pittsburgh thing happened in the synagogue shooting. Like,
You get
I
scared
felt,
to go to a synagogue,
yeah,
right?
and like I personally, as a Jewish woman, like I felt scared, like for myself, and seeing my friends who were not Jewish post about it, and standing in solidarity, that was like that felt good for me. I know, like when I made a post on Instagram about this, my like a lot of my Muslim friends, like they reached out to me saying thank you for standing in solidarity, and I'm not a political figure, I'm not a famous person, just a regular person. And I think that's kind of the point of making your own statement or making saying something is to show your friends, to show people that you do
I'm
care,
here with you, I
and you're
stand
here
with
for
you.
them.
And I absolutely get that, but for me personally, I don't want to be put in a position where I comment on one tragedy and then I have people saying all of a sudden, "Oh, why'd you comment on this
Kinda like with
tragedy, but
Bernier,
not this
yeah.
one that happened 2 months ago, or not this one that is
Yeah.
going to happen inevitably?"
But you're also not a news source, and you're also, what
Sure,
I mean?
absolutely.
Like you're not the all-knowing.
But that's just why I refrain from
Okay.
myself.
Got it.
It makes sense. I
And
get
we
you, I
have
get
we have
you.
a comment from our friend Anna, our previous guest from the Venezuela episode, Anna, who says, "Would gun control regulation actually help with this kind of situation? Terrorist attacks can be committed with other objects too, such as knives or trucks."
Which has happened.
Which
They've-
has,
Happens
of course,
all the
happened.
time.
car rammings
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Anna. I mean, she's not making a statement, but I'm inclined to agree with the idea that it's not going to help too particularly much. New Zealand is already a country with extremely strict gun control. They're going to ban
I thought their gun laws were looser than Australia's.
looser than Australia's, but still quite strict.
Okay.
It's not something that's going to.
Well, he purchased all 5 of these firearms 100% illegally, though. So
They were all.
he bought them legally.
He had a Class A. Yeah.
Yeah, he had
It
a
doesn't
question.
matter how he bought them, though. If someone wants to kill, they're gonna kill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, it doesn't matter if the guns are legal. I mean, listen, if guns are super available, yeah, it's easier.
Yeah.
But if the person has a motive to kill people, they're gonna do it regardless.
They're gonna find
of
a way.
what the
They're just
weapon
gonna
is.
use the black market.
And I
yeah.
mean, I'm a gun guy. Full disclosure. I am a gun guy, and I don't like to see gun laws
my
being
God.
strengthened too particularly much. But what I will say, I'll give some merit to the notion that strengthening gun laws in New Zealand will help, simply because it's an island and it's a rather remote island.
Yeah.
Same thing in the UK, which is a much less remote island, which does have access to the mainland of Europe. But being an island, simply by virtue of being an island, it does help. In the U.S., you can pass gun laws till your face turns blue. You're not going to stop gun violence. It's coming in from Mexico.
Yeah.
It's coming in from Nicaragua. It's coming in from Guatemala.
Even Canada, if you really need to.
No, I'm joking.
Even Canada.
You're actually right.
And,
I feel like it's so not a thing in Canada, though. Like,
What, gun laws?
no, like it is, but I feel like you don't like walk around in Toronto and you're like, oh, that guy has a gun. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so different, like the mentality here than it is in like the States.
I
or,
think it's
you know.
also to do with like the States has its own like gun culture, right? Canada doesn't have a gun culture.
we don't have a gun culture.
So
That's
it's like,
that's what I was.
Yeah,
getting at.
absolutely.
it makes
Now
sense. though.
the to play devil's advocate, there's a point to be made that when there are car rammings, you don't ban cars. When there are stabbings, you don't ban knives.
Okay, it's such a difference.
But
No,
see, the
but
UK
this
literally
is-
banned knives, though. That's what the
But
UK
the difference
did.
is that a car is not created to be a weapon of
yeah.
mass destruction.
Yeah.
You could use it. You could use anything as a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, you could buy a roller pin and go ham or
Yeah,
something
Oh,
like
God.
that.
and I mean, I think that
And this isn't my point.
or
This
a
is
whisk.
just
No,
a
it-
point.
yeah.
I get where you're
Totally.
coming from for
yeah.
sure. And there is certainly merit to that to some extent, but I would never. I personally wouldn't use that argument only because like cars do very well have another use other than murder or terrorism or
Yeah.
whatever. Guns
Not even
are.
an other use. Like that's not what
Yeah,
it's
that's
intended
exactly.
for.
Yeah, it's not their use.
Cars to
It's-
get you from point A to point B.
exactly.
A gun
whereas gun
literally
is
to
for
kill.
killing.
Yeah.
Or to hunt.
What
or
I
kill
think
other
the
people.
problem is people will say guns are for killing only. Killing is bad, therefore they should be banned. That's where I take umbrage because I don't think killing is inherently bad. Murder is inherently bad, but not all killing is murder. You know, if you kill somebody
Yeah.
who's breaking into your home,
It's
entirely
it's
justified.
self-defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you kill an animal, especially to eat it, I mean, I don't hunt, but I have nothing against hunting,
It's true,
especially
like,
for
I
sustenance.
did meet a friend of mine. Like I made a new friend in DC, and like the guy's like from his name's Zach, and he's from a town in like Pennsylvania. It's like the population's like 5,000 or 7,000, right? That's it. So like he usually like it's like he's not like a crazy gun guy or whatever like that, but like he uses like guns to like hunt animals and like he'll give it to the butcher and like they'll like
and for
prepare
some
it
people,
for him,
guns
right?
are just a part of their life.
Yeah,
For some people,
exactly.
it's their livelihood.
But
They sell the
it's
meat
not
to
like
the butcher.
yeah, like if push comes to shove, yeah, you'd probably I'd probably use it to defend myself, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like
Especially
I
somebody.
don't know. It's
like-
it's on the person though. Only if someone has those malicious intent, and it's so hard to figure that out though. Like, what are you gonna do? Like mental health screening and stuff like that. Someone can easily try and bypass that. You know?
Oh, yeah.
They can try and cheat the system. Be
I
like,
think-
oh, like a sociopath could or a psychopath could totally like fake his like fake any type of like
Yeah.
evaluation.
And even then, you could just go buy a gun illegally. But
Yeah.
the issue is with legal guns.
Yeah, and with these, I think the countries that do it best are the Central European countries. You've got, Switzerland, Austria, Hungary. Well, maybe not Hungary; they're pretty strict, but Czech Republic. And they've got very strong gun cultures there. Everybody in Switzerland has a gun. Everybody in Austria has a gun. But they have a very strong sense of guns are a tool for killing. These are very dangerous objects that you are not to mess around with. And that's simply
so
the culture
everyone
there.
has a gun.
Well,
a
I mean,
majority
okay,
of
in
people?
Switzerland, I can say that literally.
Okay.
Yes, every male has a gun.
Wow.
It's actually funny that you said that. Sorry to interrupt, just because I just remember, because we're talking about cars and guns.
Yeah.
When I was 16 and my dad first put me into the car to start to practice for my license or whatever, he sits me down. He's like, Tamar, the car is a gun. Use it wisely. And, like my family's not like pro gun or anything. That's just I just remember him saying that to me. So it's funny that we're having this conversation.
And I mean, that's a good attitude to have with any dangerous object.
Yeah.
But yes,
and I
in
proceeded
Switzerland,
to go drive over all the curbs and kill all the trees next to my.
there you go.
So I'm a shitty driver. But,
In Switzerland, every male is conscripted to the military, and they keep their service rifle on them at all times, and they bring it home with them.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
same with Israel.
yeah.
Yes, and Israel too.
yeah.
And you don't. I
And-
mean,
But what's scary though, not to interrupt, but just in Israel there was a terrorist attack just a day or two ago where I think I don't know who it was, but they came to an Israeli soldier, they stabbed them, took their gun, and started shooting.
I have a question though, just from I guess a semantic point of view. Is that considered a terrorist attack if it's against like army personnel?
No, but they just
Technically?
shot everybody, random people.
Oh, okay.
So they took the gun from the
Oh, okay, sorry.
soldier and then
I mean,
shot
it's
everyone.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
and this whole. I'm sorry to derail the conversation, but I think this is important. The whole designation of terrorist attack versus lone wolf or whatever. I think it's such a silly fight, such a silly debate. A lone wolf, people get so mad at the term lone wolf. He wasn't a lone wolf. He was a terrorist. Okay, do you know what lone wolf means? It's short for lone wolf terrorist. Simply, a lone wolf is a terrorist who is not a part of an organization devoted to terrorism.
So this
so
guy
somebody like
counts as a
Dylan
lone-
Roof, somebody
yeah.
like this lad who shot up
Nicholas
Christchurch.
Cruz or whatever his name.
Nicholas Cruz.
Yeah.
I think that's different. That's more of a mental health thing, I'd say.
Okay,
But
okay.
these are lone wolf terrorists, and we call them lone wolf to make the distinction that they are not a member of a terrorist organization, like somebody from Al Qaeda or ISIS or what have you, Hezbollah. I don't care. They come and they shoot somebody or a bunch of people. That's just a regular
I
terrorist
actually didn't
attack.
know that then. So yeah, we
Because
need to,
they are
Yeah, I
a member
didn't
of a
either.
terrorist organization.
Yeah.
A lone wolf is a lone operative. They may be inspired by a terrorist organization, but they are just acting alone. So they're a lone wolf terrorist.
I think, but I think
he's not. They don't call him a terrorist because he's white. No, shut up.
That's the argument that everyone's making though, because people just automatically relate terrorism to Muslim people, and it's because they are. Like I don't even think that's true anymore. But they used to be commonly referred to as the people that mostly commit acts of terrorism. But ever since these last like 5 or 10 years, it's slowly like switching where it's like more like white supremacists that are like taking the gun. And
but it's also
going
the
ham.
media depictions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a problem too.
Yeah.
You watch any show and there's a terrorist. It's always like a brown person.
And
Always.
because Islamic terrorism is a very different flavor from white supremacist terrorism, Islamic terrorism is often carried out by groups, by organizations, whereas you have these, let's say like a white supremacist, for example, or I'm struggling to think of another common type of terrorist, but a white supremacist, there's not very many white supremacist groups devoted to like terrorist activities or violent activities.
Like, there was
Wait, what? Sorry, say that again.
Like there's not any like or not many, not that I can think of off the top of my head, white supremacist groups that are like devoted to violent activity.
But isn't white supremacy in of itself a group?
But it's not
No.
like
I
it's
don't
not
think
like
not
a
like
specific group like
okay,
ISIS
not
or
like
Hezbollah.
Yeah,
or,
they're not organizing themselves like ISIL
Okay,
or
but
anything.
it's
and
still
because
like
there's
an
ideological
ideology.
differences, so something like the Aryan Brotherhood, I mean,
That's more of a
they're-
gang instead, right?
Yeah, and so they're counted. A lot of the white supremacist terrorist stats is the Aryan Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And how many of those are prison killings? About 95% of them. And so when you see these stats racking up for white supremacist terrorism, a lot of it is, and I hate to downplay it. I'm not trying to, but like it's important that people know this. That a lot of it is, people in the Aryan Brotherhood killing other people who are also in prison because it's a prison gang. And so that's one example. But there are a lot of these big, large-scale
But
terrorist
see,
attacks.
I don't think we can make the same distinction though, because like they're in prison though. They're
I
not
agree.
attacking like innocent
I don't think
people.
prison attacks should be counted as terrorism.
Yeah, so it's like it's different though. But, like,
because I think that's a.
but see, here's the thing though. Like all of these white supremacists, they're acting on behalf of themselves in the name of the general.
They're
topic
acting on
of
behalf of an ideology. as
Yeah,
opposed
of
to a
white
group.
supremacy. Yeah, exactly.
Which is why they're lone wolves.
Yeah, so it's like,
And-
no, it's terror.
And
But-
definitely there's a lot more to talk about in this case, and we've had a gun control episode, we've had a terrorism episode, so these topics, are not foreign, they're not new,
Yeah.
they're always present. But just getting back on track to our main story, sex and society.
Sex
Takes
in
a
the City?
turn.
Yeah,
Wow.
quick little pivot there.
Sex and terrorism.
Yeah. Sometimes sex is terrorism, depending on how good it is. So, as
Oh my God, Elliot.
As
Wow.
Family Guy's intro says, it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV. Sex on TV is what we're focusing on today. The increased focus and spotlight on sex in the media, popular culture, and massive availability of pornography have changed how society views sex, sexual practices, and discussions. On today's show, we examine if there is a hypersexualization of society, and if so, who's to blame. Before we start, remember that we are live on Facebook, so you make sure to comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. To begin, obviously, is there a hypersexualization of people portrayed in media?
Obviously.
Absolutely.
Definitely not. No, I'm joking. Actually, no.
Wow.
That's like, yeah, it's a pretty easy.
And how...
I mean, it's also, I just remember learning, like, we're both, like, I think you'll appreciate this as a media student as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do with the gays and, no, not, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I
Whoa.
remember.
The gays, like Gaze.
Oh,
The
the
gays.
yeah.
Sorry, oh my God.
Okay.
It's all the gays.
No. That's not what I was saying at all. Oh my God, not at all. It has a lot to do with the viewpoint
Yeah.
of who the viewer and who the consumer and who is the person creating the media, with how things are presented. And a lot, like, we do live, I guess, in a profit-run society.
We live in a society.
Yeah, we live in a society that's trying to raise, profits, and sex sells. So that's why, like, there's a reason that the
And now-
12-year-olds
yeah,
are doing
and
it.
So
and like,
in terms of sex selling, sorry, I just want to
no,
ask,
go ahead.
in terms of
my
sex
God.
selling, is it the fault of the producers or is it the fault of the consumers?
well, is it a fault or is it why is it necessarily a bad thing?
No, like, it's.
Well,
I wouldn't blame the consumer. That's like saying
you wouldn't blame the consumer.
That's
Oh,
like-
it's 100%. It's a cycle.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's like an equal
Producers aren't
thing.
creating
It's a
something if there's
chicken
no
before the egg question.
people to-
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's like having cigarettes with advertising and stuff like that. It's like Like, are you gonna blame them, or are you gonna blame like the good advertising that the companies made before in the '60s and stuff like that? It's like
you're not
it is
creating
a
something
cycle.
if you don't have a consumer for it.
Yeah, like it's just a supply
you
and
can
demand
create,
kind of thing.
you can
know?
create products and then attract
Yeah.
consumers. So there's not necessarily a need for it, but you can create the need,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So, so
But no one
that-
created that need. Like that's a human. I don't know.
Sam says, bring back USA style obscenity laws, and he says it's the fault of the government. And as
What
far as
can you say?
obscenity
Fuck that.
laws,
Wait, what's
What
the
are
fault of
the
the government?
obscenity?
Sex in
Wait,
the
what's
media?
the obscenity laws?
Like
First
the
of all?
ones that we had in Canada before in the '90s. Like where
Well,
they ended?
I would imagine with what Sam's talking about is things where you can't show certain things that relate to sexual content, sexual innuendo, nudity, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And-
Elliot, do you remember how they were saying in that class? I think it must have been in second year. They're saying how women who were pregnant were not allowed to be shown on TV, and then it was like I think this was like even in the 70s even.
Really?
I could be totally
I don't remember
wrong.
that part.
I think-
but-
I remember pregnant
Alright.
women were not allowed to be depicted because it talked
You're right.
about sex.
I don't think it went
And
as
then
far as the
also-
70s, though. I think it was
Maybe.
the 60s.
Okay, so 60s, but then there was also a point when if a man and a woman were, first of all, you would never see, a gay couple. It would always be straight. But you'd see a man and a woman in bed, and one of them had to have like their one like foot off of the bed, or like they had to be like kind of out of the bed. Like you couldn't be in bed together because you couldn't be insinuating like,
If they just had sex or something.
they just had or they're
And-
about to engage
and-
in,
yeah.
and like that is it's so I hear it from like one end, like I know because like I have grandparents thankfully, and I understand from like their mentality where things were very sensitive, but now like we're so desensitized to everything in
Yeah.
society that it's like crazy to me to think that like like I'm watching TV and like there's always like a sex scene.
And in terms of that, like even back in the day when they were still making films in the early 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a Hitchcock movie where he couldn't show sex on screen, so he showed two people on a bed, and then he showed a train going through a tunnel to insinuate that sex was
And-
happening
and-
because he
That's
couldn't show it.
Media students know this, the prevalence of cigarettes in 50s and 60s cinema,
Yeah.
and where that comes from is
Yeah.
it began to imply sex.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean that's an interesting tidbit I learned from a media friend.
And now this desensitization that you mentioned, Tamar, we had a lively discussion
Yeah, we
2
did.
days ago
Oh
in
my
our group
God.
chat.
Yes, we did.
Does this apply to kids? Are kids learning about sex and seeing too much sexually explicit material in media and popular culture?
Okay, so I'm actually there's I guess a balance here. I kind of want to talk about the educational aspect to this because I know a lot of times the big argument when we're talking about sex ed in public schools, I guess just actually in general, school in general, in Ontario specifically, there's a lot of concern and the argument about learning about sex ed so early or Orthodox Jewish school my whole life. I didn't even learn about like puberty. Like when I got my period, I was like, what the fuck is happening to me? Like none of this. And I'm totally for starting young and learning all these things because they're gonna learn about it anyway. You might as well learn about it from a scientific perspective.
Right.
And I'm getting a little bit off track now, but yeah. So I think that the parents, that I guess is a concern that they have because they don't want them to be so. But you also have to understand that the world we live in is like children are going to be exposed to it, especially nowadays. You have kids on iPads, kids on phones,
Yeah.
like at such a young age. Like my 3-year-old niece knows how to get onto my phone,
And
and
that's
they're gonna
the
be
thing.
exposed to that.
That's
So the
thing.
question is, though, is that a good thing? And is there, a way to stop that exposure
there has to be
or
a balance.
to a lesser degree?
There has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing that kids can get access to the internet and all it has to offer? No.
Everything in moderation.
And when it comes to this, I can be a prude, but I'm not a Luddite. I don't think that we need to suppress sex ed, and as much as I kind of wish we just could, we live in a age where kids are going to be able to see these things, and it's not even about them looking it up on purpose. It's so easy to accidentally stumble upon porn.
I remember when I stumbled
It
on
happened to
porn.
me as a kid. Yeah.
You know what happened to me? I was on LimeWire and I wanted to download a WWE fight against
Yeah.
Booker T and like Kurt Angle or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this guy's in a van. And I'm like, oh, okay, this girl's okay. They're going back to their house. I'm like, oh, they're
Oh,
taking
but you
off
didn't.
pictures.
You didn't turn it off. You kept watching.
No, of course you
Yeah,
didn't.
I mean,
yeah,
it's
like, what the hell?
hypnotizing to the young mind.
It's
and-
literally like addicting. It's like it's poisonous for a young mind.
Bingo.
It's just like smoking weed
And
at this age.
But sorry,
It's-
my point.
Sorry.
I do think that we do need to teach kids. We need to prepare kids for this, and we need to ensure that they are well equipped to deal with it when it does come to them, because it will come to them.
The also thing that does like it creates like a negative effect on creating proper relationships with other people in
Absolutely.
the future and stuff
And-
like that.
and that-
Because you're assuming that like I know we're probably gonna talk about it later with porn specifically, right? Like you see how like a porn star is like having sex with a male porn, like how two porn stars are having sex together, right? Like. I guess it's hot and stuff like that, but not every sexual encounter you have has to be like, oh my god, like.
And we are going to come back to the porn argument, but the other thing I wanted to ask was, not on the sex ed front, but in terms of music videos nowadays with women twerking and being used as objects, like that obviously has an effect on kids.
Yeah.
And there was a study that was done that I found evidence that sexual images of minors influence the way we view children, and this goes to what we also talked about, which was hypersexualization of young children and portraying young children as sexual objects, right? For example, you look at the music video of Britney Spears in the school. She's dressed as a schoolgirl.
yeah.
Schoolgirls
Okay.
are aged 14 to 18, so she's pretending to be 17.
But see,
right?
no, here's the thing though. Like the record company knows that that's like a fantasy that some people have, right?
Yeah,
I know.
So
which
that's
is-
why they can capitalize
Which
off
is
and
why
profit from it.
a
And that's a
point
problem.
that Anna made in the chat, in the comments, she says it's mostly the consumer. It is about the supply and demand, and I
sure.
completely
we did say
disagree.
that,
Totally.
yeah.
I entirely disagree.
Really?
I think it's entirely manipulation. I think it's
I
entirely.
agree. I agree because the media
by
is
the
the
top-
one.
I think it's a
as-
created
Medium
demand.
is the message.
Yeah.
I think it's an artificial demand that's been created. And when we talk about these music videos with Britney Spears pretending to be a kid, it's
Not
disgusting.
pretending to be a kid.
Yeah, she
Wait, yeah,
is.
she is.
It's
No, it's-
implicit though. But
Yeah.
like anybody who's ever read the book Lolita or watched the movie Lolita
Oh God.
should be on a list.
Gross, yeah.
It's
And what is
disgusting.
that for our viewers who don't know?
It's a book. It's a
Wait,
rather.
why do you know what it is then?
Well,
Yeah,
should you
did
be on that
read
list?
it?
too?
No, I've never read it.
I'm
It's
joking.
Oh, you have?
it's a rather influential and famous Russian novel
Okay.
about an older man who falls in love with like a
Like
12-year-old
pedophilia,
girl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's just chronicling this guy's relationship with this girl. It's like a romance novel almost in a way.
Isn't
But
It's
that-
actually creepy on a side note because
So it's
uh,
romanticizing
yeah.
pedophilia. Then.
On a side note, like Kat Von D, who's like a very
Oh, yeah, yeah.
promising like makeup artist or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it's a different story. Kat
Yeah.
Von Polio, some people call her. But anyways, she's anti-vax. But anyways, sorry, I'm getting off topic. She has a line called Lolita, like
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of like lipstick and like cosmetics and like all these things that are like named after, and it's based after that, and like that's also
Like,
a huge thing.
if I walked into if I made a new friend and I walked into his apartment, he had a copy of Lolita on the bookshelf, I would just walk out. Like I would be so disgusted. Like how can you sit through? Especially like a movie is one thing. Like that's probably I bet it's a 2-hour long movie. But to read a book, to spend days and days, nights and nights reading
chilling
this
your
book,
lazy boy, just
what
like-
is wrong with you? That is disgusting.
isn't there-
You should go to jail. That is gross.
Wow, coming from a free speech absolutist,
Yeah.
interesting.
I
But,
mean,
but isn't there a movie that Kevin Spacey was in that was about falling in love with a minor?
Yeah, some.
Is that-
Wasn't that a beautiful-
American Beauty? I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I just think that's so creepy, honestly.
And
Yeah.
so going back to
That
who's-
movie's a lot more creepier now with all the shit.
Oh
that's
yeah,
going on,
and
so-
that's the problem. Like you have, this is it's a fiction film, but then you realize like shit, this is really real. Now these films and these books, does it make it worse?
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like we were also talking about the story of an 11-year-old drag a
Queen.
kid who
Drag queen
drag
is
queen.
what-
Drag queen.
He does drag. He's a drag queen, and he performed in a gay bar. And social services showed up to his house, following that.
Sorry.
Because
Matter of time.
because
Jeez.
see, and that's and the question is like, we were talking about children performing. And there's a distinction between, say, singing in a bar or singing at a restaurant as opposed to, dancing or performing something, that has sexual parts to it. Drag queens dance sexually.
Okay, so I totally disagree on that. It's actually funny because, we're going to just repeat this conversation that we had privately.
Yeah.
But
For our viewers.
I just think, like, it matters on, I think, again, like, I don't want to keep saying gays because I don't want people to think it's Gays. Like, I'm talking about the gays, like the
Visual gaze.
the visual gaze of how you're looking at something and how you're consuming it. And I think that, dance, while could be sexual, because, there's also a lot of beauty to it.
Dance.
And a lot of...
No, the drag
As an
specifically.
art.
Okay.
No, but
Oh,
well, firstly, drag too. Like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm completely straight, and I go to Cruise and Tangos all the time to watch drag queens perform because I think it's beautiful. I love seeing their makeup. I love the
It's
whole...
an art form.
Yeah, I see it as...
If you see them like before, like when they're completely
Yeah.
like cisgendered male, like in their appearance, and like the amount of work it takes for them, like I don't know if you've ever seen Drag Race or not. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know,
I've seen an
course.
episode. It's,
Like-
it's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
such talent.
Creates so
It's-
much
yeah.
skill. Like it's insane.
However, with
I
the,
know
with
it's
the
like-
point,
I went to a drag show once and I physically felt the presence of Satan in the room.
Oh my God. You would.
And
You would.
I because I am open-minded because
Oh,
I wanted
I'm
to-
open-minded, but when I'm in a drag show, I feel
because
Satan.
I went and I went to this drag show and I'm
pretty sure you were the person who told me where the best place to go to drag was.
because I had been to one, yes. And I went in and I physically felt the claws of Satan in my shoulders
Oh my God.
saying, "Yes, Marshall, watch the drag show." And I
and now going back to though, children performing, like an 11-year-old, and I mentioned this. I don't care if it's a gay bar. I don't care if it's a straight bar. It's a matter of a child performing in a place, in an environment where people are horny and they're expecting to see something sexual. Now, there was a study that I found, going back to it, again, evidence that sexual images of minors influence the way we view children. Does the sexualization, specifically of young girls, sexualization of young girls affect the way ordinary people regard kids? Now, there was a study, and the barely legal study suggests that ordinary people who aren't pedophiles, have no trouble learning to associate 12-year-old girls with sexuality. And that was after only a brief exposure to simulated images of teen sexuality in the lab. What happens when people are repeatedly exposed? What happens when the imagery features 7-year-old girls rather than adolescents? And what happens when pedophiles see the popular culture endorsing the sexualization of children?
It's gonna normalize their behavior. I guess, is what
Exactly.
you're trying
And
to
that's
say?
why,
I agree.
as much as I try to be neutral and just to ask the questions in this case,
we're good here.
I don't
this is a
think
good mix of like opinions
yeah,
and views.
I
so
don't think that, especially that 11-year-old kid,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about exploring your sexuality. That's a totally different story
Mm-hmm.
from performing in a bar with people looking for sex. Because the 11-year-old is not going to go into that bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's their parents that are allowing him to
Yeah,
go
one
into
of
that
their
bar.
viewers, Sam, says that don't forget there were adults in the room who were giving the child dollar bills as he danced.
which is of course
And the bar had a no phone policy. And it was 100% sexual, and that child is a victim of abuse.
And I entirely agree. Why was there a no phone policy? Because people didn't want the outside world knowing what was going on in there. Throwing dollar bills at a child who's dancing, that
like a
is
stripper.
inherently reminiscent. It is symbolic of a exotic dancer
Yeah.
Oh my
being given tips.
And this kid is 11, and the question is, do you want to see your kid? There's a lot of people that are applauding this kid, that are saying, good for you, express your sexuality. And again, nothing against that, but express it in an environment that's not looking to use you as a sexual object.
But see,
Yeah.
where is he gonna do that though?
Yeah.
That's the
That's
thing.
the
I don't
outlet
know.
We
that
literally
you
talked
have.
about this in the
Make-
conversation.
Wait, do what?
Make a- wait, no, but
if
make
that
a-
kid goes to his talent show in elementary school and he's like, "Look at me, guys! I'm Daniel the drag queen," and I'm like,
Well, maybe
I'm
just
literally gonna
don't
get
do it.
bullied so hard. But see, that's the thing though.
But you know what?
But
Start-
the
start
fact
it-
But why
else.
not do
Start-
it?
Exactly.
Why do something else? It's it's an art form. It's a type of talent.
But I'm saying
Why
the
should he be-
environment.
Okay, so
Not the form,
yes,
the environment.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think that maybe the avenue and the place it was done might not have been, like hearing about other situations and more about that specific situation. Okay, I can start to see. I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, like it is an art form. Like, it's lip syncing. Like, what's the difference of me getting up and lip syncing and dancing on a you know, at a school talent show than it is for a guy to dress up as a woman, as a drag queen, to perform? There's no, like, it's not.
no, but I'm
Because
saying
the concept
you
of
can-
gender is a very complex concept that I don't think 11-year-olds are ready to confront head on in that way. I don't think that 11-year-olds are able to process the implications that come along with.
At 11 years old, you're not like a little pisher. Like, you know what's going on.
But also, it's the difference in terms of
Very
the
underdeveloped brain at that age.
But the difference.
I would
in-
say like 13, you probably know what's going on. you
Even
know?
then, you like even at 13, that's a young
I don't
child.
know.
But what
I
I'm
say
saying-
at 12, you're an adult. So.
But well, I mean, that's because of the culture, right? Would you
Yeah.
say that because
No,
in Jewish
yeah.
culture, yeah. So
Your
and
bat
and
mitzvah,
yeah,
bar mitzvah,
and for
you're
men
an
it's,
adult.
it's
Yeah.
13. But the difference
I never
between
had my
singing,
quinceañera, I'm sad.
the difference between singing and performing drag, is that you're like both. For example, like an 11-year-old singing at a bar. I don't know. I don't think that's the right place to do it. If
I
you
agree.
want to be a drag queen, that's fine. Make a YouTube channel. You're gonna get tons of views.
I'm pretty sure this kid has a YouTube
Exactly.
channel.
So-
I'm pretty
so-
sure he
so,
has.
yeah,
I've seen
he-
like some like now this videos
Yeah,
about him.
he's had a whole now this
he's really
video
talented.
and sure, he's talented. But I don't want to see, let's say this kid is mine, I don't want to see my 11-year-old doing drag for a group of horny men or
Yeah.
horny men and women.
I mean, you take one look at the parents. Don't you dare tell me that this wasn't entirely the parents' idea. Like,
yeah.
you look at them. Look at the
well, I
parents.
mean, how did the kid get into the bar?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
and
so I
and we have a couple comments that I think are really interesting. And Max, I'll get to yours, but it's a bit off topic. But Sam says 11-year-old kids should not be expressing their sexuality. What the fuck? Agreed. And Anna said there's a political party in the Netherlands that advocates for pedophilia. Should this be banned, or would this be a violation of freedom of association? Yes, it should be banned. Just in the same way that terrorist groups are not legal, like is a group that advocates for like literal violence against children that much different from a terrorist group? No. Yes, they should be banned and they should all be arrested and go to prison. And as for Max, he says regarding the Damien situation, he says the difference is that their bodies would not be sexualized in a school talent show.
Exactly.
And I agree. And he also says,
Did
which
you
is I
not
think is a
see
great
that
point.
video I posted in our group chat, please?
I did.
And you're gonna tell me
Which-
that was just a talent show about
which
a bunch,
one?
the one of like the 5
group of
girls,
girls,
doing
yeah,
hip hop.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
it
that-
was sexual. It was
That
gross.
too, I'm,
100%.
Yeah.
and that too, I'm against. You know, like
But that's
especially
hip
the.
hop. Like, did you guys? Like, I did hip hop. I did dance growing up. Like, that's
Me
what
too.
it is.
Yeah.
I did dance growing up as well. I'm
Sorry.
Remember,
I don't mean to laugh at you
that's
doing
fine.
dance.
I did ballroom for 7 years.
Oh my god!
Okay.
sick. Like,
Can we
good
dance
for you.
together? Wow.
Sure. I mean,
Wow.
as long as your husband's okay with it. I
He'll join us.
okay,
He's
sure.
European, so
sick.
you know,
so
their views
I
are
did.
much more
I did ballroom
open.
for 7 years, and the difference now and then is the outfits. Okay, like I'm not saying.
So you're
again,
saying like what the girls are wearing with the pink thing and the black and the tight black shorts?
So it
Yeah.
would have been fine. Other like the dancing and shaking their asses is fine
well,
as
that
long
too.
as they're not.
No, but that too.
The
like,
outfit plays a
ballroom-
big part. Of
the
course.
outfit plays a big part, and I'm not trying to say like the whole idea of going to the far end of rape, like you're raped because of what you're wearing. But in terms of performing,
I was actually told that once in high school.
really,
Well, not me specifically, but like I had
Wow.
a teacher who literally said like, yeah, like if you're wearing a short skirt like and you wear nail polish, you're gonna get raped.
yeah,
Like what the
and
fuck?
and,
Fuck is
and
wrong
Yeah,
with-
right?
yeah.
Fucking high school.
Which
Yeah.
is
no,
bull-
sorry, that was middle school. I
That
was
was
in
middle
7th
school.
grade.
Wow, geez.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to that end, but as Marshall just said, the outfit plays a huge part of it. However, the dance itself of the shaking of the ass, I don't want to see my
Shaking of
5-year-old
the ass.
shaking her butt on stage for a bunch
Agreed.
of people. You know what I mean? So ballroom especially, ballroom is a very beautiful form of art. It's not sexual, it's more sensual.
Okay, how about this then?
Okay,
Like,
that-
so
And
like,
even if I wouldn't even say sensual. I feel like it's not even that. It's just romantic. And
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be romantic. Like, I don't think that there's any necessary complex of romance or of sexuality or of sensuality that comes with ballroom dancing the same way it comes with a lot of hip hop dancing.
Okay, so how about this though? I didn't go to last year's Pride, but I know I didn't go to last year's Pride, but I just want to see what your take on this because you're very, very against having the kid do drag like in a bar, right? And I totally
In a
respect
bar.
it.
In a
I know,
bar.
there you go. That's fine. So in Pride, like I'm pretty sure it was like lots of drag queens that were on like RuPaul's Drag Race and stuff. They were performing right at Yonge and Dundas Square. Like, they did a full concert and stuff like that. So my question is, okay, if that kid was there at a Yonge and Dundas Square, where literally anyone could be exposed to something like that, and they can watch him, right? Like, do you think that's a problem?
Children
as well,
shouldn't
then?
be at Pride.
Okay, that is a different
So
conversation.
I'm not gonna comment on that part. What I'm gonna comment on is that question specifically,
Yeah.
and I would say it's
Like,
not
Marshall's got a
necessarily-
tough pickle that he's saying. Like,
I know.
I get it.
We're
but,
gonna
like,
get to that.
yeah.
It's not necessarily ideal in my point of view,
Yeah.
but I would much rather.
You prefer that?
I would much rather have him perform because this is a public place.
There you go.
You can have
Okay.
tourists come by, like, oh, Toronto's so nice. You have people, being, able to express themselves, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's not. Yonge and Dundas Square is not an environment where people are coming to find sexual partners and to throw dollar bills. This is a performance of, pride in being proud of who you are and doing so. Gay bar, straight bar, not the place to do
All
it.
right, Marshall. Let's go back to what you were saying.
It's marginally preferable, the Yonge and Dundas thing, but only marginally so. Like, I don't think children should be at Pride. It's not an appropriate place for children. And I mean,
I can definitely agree with some aspects behind that though, because I remember with the first year I went to Pride, I literally saw like so many people there, just like the nudists or whatever, or just random people. Just I think some girl was just full on bush, just like
yeah, I mean,
and like she was only wearing like bandanas like on her arms and stuff. I'm like,
I mean,
I guess that's an
you saw
outfit, but like
even our prime minister was in a picture with a completely topless woman at Pride. Like, if the prime minister is getting in on that, then what's stopping children, right? It's simply not.
But that definitely comes to the role of hypersexualization.
It's
in
an
our
entirely
society.
hypersexualized event and an environment, and it's not a place for children.
And monkey see, monkey do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like the
But
kids
here's
see
the-
it and they do it.
But here's the thing, though: we've normalized the hypersexualization of heterosexual relationships right now because this new idea of being like the environment being exposed to homosexual
but
relationships.
have we though?
It
Because
makes
you
it
don't
different.
because you don't necessarily see like just a straight woman per se going around and flailing her boobs like in the middle of the street, would you?
I literally see that all the time on Instagram. There's some girl just literally pulling down her pants and she's at a Walmart or some shit,
Okay,
showing off her
I
ass.
think we're
Weird.
getting off topic and we're getting a little bit. I don't know. We're talking about something that
I agree, Tamar.
I'm actually I'm like purposely keeping my mouth shut, but
Well, so then let's get back on topic.
yeah,
And
let's
we have
go.
a poll. We have a poll that we
Yeah.
haven't gotten to.
And I'm gonna remind our viewers of the question, which was the question we've all been waiting for: is porn good or bad for you? And our poll results are.
Well, I see that righteousness has prevailed with 64% saying
I
porn
was
is
probably
bad.
the only
And
person who voted.
36% said porn is good, with 45 votes in total, which
So-
is a decent number.
wow.
Wow, that's really good.
That's good.
And the poll was on for less than 24 hours, so thank you to everyone that voted.
So before we get onto this, sorry, I want to read my friend Zahavi's comment because
I
finally
know.
someone's on my side. He said, "I don't think drag bars are inherently promoted as places to hook up.
Oh.
These days, they are considered safe haven for LGBTQ people and a place to celebrate and have fun. The culture of bars being places to hook up has largely declined, and I could not agree with that more.
I think that's a fair
And
assessment.
I think it's a.
I mean, that goes specifically with Cruise and Tangos, though, right? Because I know everyone goes there like just they want to see the new drag queens, like all the
Honestly-
up and coming drag queens.
Honestly, the biggest group. How am I gonna word this? The when I go to Cruise and Tangos or I go to a gay bar, like one of these big places, the largest population of people there are not gay people.
Yeah.
It's straight girls having a bachelorette party. Honestly, like that's how I see it. And I totally agree with Zahavi. It's that it is a celebration of something that has been like. What's the word? Is repressed the word, or it's a celebration of something that has been so like taboo and hidden and not allowed to be, or you're like people are being discriminated against for having these beliefs, for having the sexualities, And, you know, this is a place where people can be themselves and can celebrate the fact that they can be themselves and all of that. And I don't think that, you know, saying that it's inherently a place to hook up is,
Like,
you know,
actually,
fair.
now that you say that, like, it makes me more comfortable, like, having the idea of, like, that kid be going to cruise and tangos and dancing there.
While I
stuff like that.
agree that bars, drag bars, whatever, are not a inherently sexual place, they are certainly an inherently adult environment.
Well,
Also,
yeah,
remember
there's a
though,
reason it's 18 plus, you know?
but
like,
also remember, he didn't perform at a drag bar. He just performed at a gay bar, as opposed to a
Well,
straight bar. But that's where he performed.
I would
it wasn't
imagine
a
it was-
specifically drag bar.
I would imagine it was a
Okay.
drag bar if it had a drag queen.
well, no, not always.
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Lots of
according to the
places.
Like,
article,
what makes it a drag bar?
that it's like you specifically go there to see drag.
I see.
Well,
That's my understanding of it.
I don't know.
But you know, so let's go back to the idea of porn, good or bad.
Oh, so this is actually funny. So in second year, sorry, I'm very passionate about this topic
No,
because
go ahead.
I study media, right? And the porn industry is a huge, booming industry.
Plan B for me.
To be plan A, you know how much money you can make on editing.
Oh, I
Oh
know.
my god, it's.
I was in
actually,
Vegas and this-
That's
Oh,
where the
you're
money
talking
is.
about editing.
Oh no, if you're editing porn videos, you could be making like
I'm definitely not shooting.
quadruple of what you're making now, just as a
Well, you
regular.
want to wear like a hazmat suit?
I think
Behind the
Daniel
camera?
had assumed that you wanted to act.
Yeah, that's. what I
Oh
was
yeah,
thinking.
didn't we all.
We'll see.
But yeah, no. So the thing is that I wrote an essay in second year about the male gaze, right? So about the way that what is the word? Like about the way that media is influenced by the way that men, specifically like white heterosexual men, see women in the media. And it got me into this. It was really interesting. I went and I was looking into like the porn industry and all that. And I went back like a couple of years in research, and I learned about this movement called anti-porn feminism. And it was a whole bunch of women talking about, and also men, talking about how porn directly incites violence against women. And how it, you know, like we were saying before, how it gives you false hopes of relationships.
It's literally the complete opposite.
What do you mean?
It's like from what these people are saying, what porn is. At least in
Right.
my
No. So I wrote this essay, and I
Yeah.
wrote this whole anti-porn essay in second year university. Anyways, a couple weeks ago, I just submitted another essay, also about porn, about the porn industry and how it has evolved over the years. And it was really interesting to know that in the last like 20 years, starting in Toronto, there's been this outlet of feminist porn, which is like a whole thing in itself. And people think, okay, that's such an oxymoron. Like, how can you have feminist porn? And I think that
But porn is feminist by nature because the
well, not necessarily. Well,
okay, maybe like what my interpretation of it is like it's like I guess the idea of like sexual like liberation, you know, because
Yeah,
the idea
that
that the
in and
porn
of
star
itself.
is 100 like you can like even if you watch like the dirtiest scene where like the guy is like
We
using
don't
it-
need details.
Yeah.
sorry,
please
but like
spare me.
if it's like a very fine, I'll say it this way, if it's a very explicit scene, like sorry, I wasn't trying to go into the details, my bad, but like and it's like you know like the magic's happening, I guess, all right, but like the idea is like she consented to all of this, you know.
okay,
So it's, like,
absolutely not. There's
Yeah, no,
so much rape porn.
No,
like, don't even.
no, but I'm saying like shooting the
No.
the actual
Oh
video.
my God, are you
It's
kidding me?
it's
Do you have any
extremely
idea how much
exploitative.
violence happens
Yeah.
in the porn
No, no, no,
industry?
It's an
in and of
entirely
itself?
exploitative industry.
Totally.
There's so much,
Totally.
so many
No, no.
underage women
whoa,
in
all right.
porn. So many underage women in porn. It is linked to sex trafficking. It is
It's not
linked.
even about the underage. It's about even
I know, but that's a big part of it, of
even
course,
women
because you can't
consenting,
consent
you
at
know,
that
to
point.
be on screen. Like they're not like there's so many
Women are told they're doing one thing and then brought there and forced to do another thing.
Yeah, it's totally not.
Porn is biological, psychological warfare against the human mind, against our society. It cheapens sex. It ruins your psychology, your psyche, and your sex life. And most importantly, my friends, it's a sin. Most importantly. But
Oh my God.
It is-
Okay, I have a question. Is that what's
Okay, maybe-
how much according to you for saying that this is a sin, how much more is watching porn a sin versus having sex before marriage?
oh, they're both sins, of course.
Oh, of course.
But
Some people are just, you know, the pot calling the kettle black.
no. They're both sins. They're both sins, and I'm not perfect myself, and I don't think that we should strive towards
sin.
sin, and that's what's important to me,
sin. Oh my
is
God.
that we should strive to move away from sin.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
regardless
No
of
sitting.
that, the religious aspect is one thing, but the psychological violence that pornography inflicts upon you and our society is doing irreparable damage to our young men and our young women too.
That's
And,
why you need to watch
I do want to
feminist
clarify
porn.
my point though, because it's like what I was trying to say was like maybe it's just like the mainstream porn stars, I guess, like the bigger ones and stuff like that actually make the money and stuff like that. They have a more empowering like role in the porn industry. But like if all the other like that's literally just the tip of the iceberg.
Well,
So then
even-
once,
even-
So
like,
I
once
have
you
a question.
once
I have a
you
question.
yeah.
If you are a media maker, right? You're a producer, an actor,
All right,
or whatever, content creator. You want to have control over what you're seeing, right? If you, control over what you're making, right? If you create something,
Okay.
you want to, be properly paid for it.
Right.
You want to be, acknowledged for it. You want it to be, you have the royalties, you have the rights to it. Fine. Most women in the porn industry, like, you can even log on to whatever, I don't know what these websites are because I don't engage in this type of sinning, but as someone would call it. But, like, you log on to one of these websites and, you're watching these videos and the women aren't getting compensated, or the actors in general are not being compensated because you're viewing it for free. How are they getting compensated for the work that they've done? Their art, their acting. You know what I mean?
See,
Well,
unless,
they
unless,
would've
it's,
been-
unless it's an already established famous porn
Unless,
star.
I would imagine that
That's what I
it's
was trying to say,
feminist.
though.
Listen,
But-
I'm telling you, this whole feminist porn thing, it's like it's like such an interesting industry because like I was saying, I wrote an
And
essay
that's
about
different
it.
from the porn industry
It's
we have
totally
now.
different.
Okay.
It actually was started in Toronto. It's so interesting.
Wow, okay.
It was started in
Really?
Toronto by a sex shop called Good for Her,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's all about like basically it was a whole bunch of women, queer, straight, all that, like a whole bunch of different people, who came up with this idea saying, the porn industry is not going anywhere. Women are being talked about in a specific way. They're being depicted in a certain way. We're not going to sit here and, just like be silent. Like, we're going to take our agency back. We're going to, make with what we have and, create an industry where we're telling the stories, where we're going to make sure we're compensated for our art. We're going to make sure we're compensated for our work. And it's amazing. And when I was writing this essay, I really wanted to, I wanted to do a case study and talk about it. And I did some research trying to click and watch,
Right.
feminist porn for just for totally for research purposes. And I couldn't because I had to pay for it. And I was like, oh, obviously, because it's ethical.
Right, yeah.
So it's super interesting. And,
Yeah,
you
I've definitely never thought about that, like, because, like, I've never, like honestly, like, I do think it's a problem that I do have, like watching porn and stuff like that. I do wish I could at least, like, lower my intake and stuff like that. I'm not saying, like I'm watching, like, all the time and stuff like that, but
You're definitely not watching right now.
No. God.
do you know if he is or not? His phone was dead, so I mean,
That's true.
that's why.
And
No,
men.
but it's like all the points that Marshall was saying, like, it's definitely caused like some problems with me and like made it more difficult to have proper intimacy with someone else and stuff like that, or like thinking that like having sex is like that's how you're supposed to have sex, the way you have is in porn. I'm like, no, that's like super hypersexualization. It's super. It's just not the way it is. It's just it's a fantasy. It's a complete farce.
And
you
men,
know?
when you're watching porn, you are making a cuckold of yourself. You are ostensibly pleasing yourself to the idea of another man having sex with a woman who you are attracted to. If that's not making yourself a cuckold, a cuck, then I don't know what is. And we have a fantastic point from our friend Sam, who says there have
Just
been
be on this
instances.
show.
He was last week.
No, he
There
should
have
just be
been
permanently
instances
on
of
the show.
armies
Oh.
broadcasting porn
Ugh.
over a occupying civilian population. Why do you think they would do
Whoa,
that?
say what? Sorry.
So there have been instances of armies broadcasting porn over a civilian population they are occupying. Because
Okay.
it's psychological warfare.
Oh.
It weakens the men. It ruins the virility and the fertility of their men. It ruins their sex drives.
Fertility.
And we've got Max saying, if a kid today watches porn and finds out how babies are made, don't you think they will assume that mommy and daddy acted similarly to the video that he or she watched? And Max brought up a great point earlier, similar to that, is the way people are intaking porn these days is so different from what it used to be. There's a big difference from, finding your father's Playboy magazine under the treadmill, and then, even
Of all places.
Yeah,
Why
while
the
you're
treadmill?
exercising.
I don't know.
It's like,
What kind of exercising?
I don't know. I just feel like that's a place that it would be.
I mean,
in
I wouldn't
a
look
magazine.
there, so that's smart. Yeah, there you go.
But
Well, now you're
or and even in the early 2000s, watching Latina Lovers on TLN, that's also a big difference between that and on the internet porn. That stuff is deplorable. It's
Telemundo.
it's
Univision. There you go.
So, but going back, you see to the availability of porn and to seeing that kids can easily access it, though.
But it's not about kids. It's about everyone. Everyone can easily access it.
But I'm talking about access at a younger age.
Everybody includes kids.
Yeah.
True.
And with aside from the easily accessible porn, the fact that music videos and performers are now doing this, and this is for prime time for the public viewing that's not labeled pornography, is that a problem? Is that making it worse? Because as I mentioned on a previous show that I was on, Butterfield Popcorn, my friend Austin and Prajwal's show last week, I was talking about performers needing to use sex to convey their message, and how one of the biggest reasons that I'm a big fan of Celine Dion is that she doesn't do that. Because I judge...
Why doesn't she do that?
Because she doesn't have to. She has the talent and the audience to get her message across, to get her beautiful voice and personality across without having to strip down naked.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about
Oh,
Celine.
thank you.
Sorry
I know.
for ruining the
I
mic.
mean, I'll find it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But and then just you look at, for example, Nicki Minaj's what's the song
Don't
called?
diss
No,
Barbie, bro.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no, I'm not dissing her, but I'm stating a fact. What was that music video called where it was like, I like big butts and I cannot? She copied that. She took
yeah,
that
yeah,
porn
I know
song.
what you're
I have a
Anaconda.
question.
Anaconda.
Why are we talking
It was
about
Anaconda.
examples?
Anaconda.
Why are we talking about examples of women? Like, why can't we talk about examples of men?
We
like,
can
if
talk
a
about
woman
it-
wants to do that, why does she not have the agency to be able to
I
do
am
that?
not saying she doesn't have the right
Well,
to
you're
do
criticizing it.
You
first.
are.
I am saying that
You're saying that it's bad.
I'm not saying it's bad in for everyone. I just think that it's not necessarily, and this goes for men too. When men are portrayed as sexual objects,
Okay,
it
but
makes
come
every
It's
no,
not the same.
I don't
no,
think
no.
that-
It's totally not the same.
I'm not saying-
Historically,
Like men,
not
like
the
in
same at
the way that men are portrayed is like it'll be like
I'm
Lady
not-
Gaga in the background and they're just wearing shirtless.
What
and they
I'm
have, like, a
trying
top
to
hat
say,
and a
if I
fucking
can
thing,
finish
you
a
know?
point.
Sorry.
all. Oh.
I
ahead.
am not saying that the portrayal is the same. I'm saying that both portrayals cause self-esteem issues. They cause an increased hypersexualization for children, and they increase the need for people to want to see more, such as porn, such as HBO, which doesn't label itself as porn, but there's basically porn in it all the time. So
My teacher
that's
literally
my
says
point.
Game of Thrones
I watch it
porn.
for the plot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's the
I've heard
point I'm
that
trying
before.
to make. Not necessarily that they're
Okay.
portrayed in the same way.
Okay.
And yeah, I agree with that. I think it very much is a gateway. And I think, as our friend Humphrey points out, kids can get lured to porn by watching hentai, which is, for those who don't know, like a Japanese anime type of thing. Hashtag ban anime. Who I knew a kid who would play
Anime.
pornographic games depicting cartoon images. Who remembers Newgrounds? Newgrounds.com.
That had
was this
so much porn.
game.
What was that?
It was this this game website on the internet.
It had like flash games like on
And-
your computer that
Wow,
you
I'm
played.
so glad I was so sheltered.
Yeah.
So many porn games on there that were so easy to come across.
Yeah.
And it was literally just like poorly made.
It would literally
like,
be like on the suggested, like after you click a
they
regular
eventually
game.
found a way to kind of segregate the porn
Yeah.
stuff. But for so long, the porn stuff was right beside like Alien Hominid,
Yeah.
which was a very popular
Yeah.
Newgrounds game that a lot of people played, or like,
I just played Mario.
and good to hear. You know,
Yeah,
I
and some
think
some people played other things with their wee, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
yeah.
So
Oh my God, Elliot!
What happened
true.
to you,
I
bro?
think you need
It's true.
Jesus.
Yeah.
sorry, you're sinning, guys. That's the Raben Report. But go ahead, Marshall.
And you know, Humphrey's absolutely right. Is that it's not simply just porn that is accessible to these kids. It's gateways to porn. And I mean, if you want to call these games porn, I would agree with you. But I understand if people don't want to call these sexual games porn. If you know, it's not depicting real people, so it's different. Whatever. I think it's porn. But even
Yeah,
if it's
like
not,
hentai
it's
is porn,
very
yeah.
much
Yeah.
a gateway to
Yeah.
actual porn.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's so accessible to children is I think disgusting and awful. And what I really love is what they're doing in the UK. How effective is it going to be? I'm not sure, but
What are they doing?
the conservative government there has introduced legislation to if you want to access porn, you have to send in a picture of your valid driver's license in order to get a porn pass, or else your
my
computer
Porn pass?
That's just
or else your
Wow.
computer is unable to access porn. And
Jesus.
Okay, so I love
if
how
that
you-
helps, if that helps the government keep tabs on these people, then that's okay with me.
Do you think the government should have that? I mean, this is a different conversation. I don't know. I don't think the government should have that kind of control in
No,
anyone's
like,
life
especially-
at all. No matter how
especially-
you feel about it.
Especially Marshall, like I'm curious about you though because you're a big fan of small government.
I'm not a big fan
No?
of small government.
I thought you were a big fan of small government.
No, not at all.
So you're a fan of big government.
I'm a fan of good government. I
Wow.
whether-
Wow, that
I,
was
I don't believe that small government is good. I don't believe that big government is good. I believe in.
Do you believe the government should stay out of people's bedrooms, or should stay in there? Because that goes to the same idea
That
of
isn't
porn.
Like, porn is an
Well,
extension of the bedroom.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, I don't think. I think that's too much of a vague analogy.
Well, if are you pro that system of getting a porn pass?
Yeah, and I'd even have it go even further personally.
How?
Well, I mean, I banning the production of porn.
Banning the production
Wow.
of
Absolutely.
porn.
Wow.
If we can ban, sex work, which we have historically done until recently in most places, we can ban porn just as well. It'll still have.
Tamar,
Wow.
do you have some
It'll
stuff?
still
This
have-
ain't it.
I don't even want to say
This
it.
ain't
Wow.
it. I'm just
Wow.
gonna say this ain't it, Chief. There you go. This ain't it. You know.
I just
But-
don't vote Marshall as Prime Minister of Canada. That's all I can say.
Well, prime ministers aren't voted
gonna
in,
take
so
away
I'm
your-
okay.
gonna
Okay,
take away your
don't vote him
porn.
in anything.
And he's gonna take away your anime too.
yeah,
man. That's
so-
what he's gonna
I'm gonna
do.
take away your anime. Anybody? No, I'm kidding about
I
the
don't know.
anime.
You're all for freedom of expression,
Yeah.
so that's so funny to
For-
hear you say
Well,
something
that-
like
yeah,
that.
for-
to ban
for-
production.
I
of
support the
anything.
free
Forget
expression
your-
of ideas.
That is
forget-
an idea.
Porn's not an idea.
Okay,
Sexuality
okay.
is completely.
And
totally,
you know what? You know what? Actually,
let me.
Oh wow!
I
this
just,
is
I just
getting.
wanted to add, in our script for my practicum, which is our final project, my friend Austin wrote an amazing script. And in the script, there's a conversation about pornography, whether pornography is a genre. And the character talks about how porn is a genre because it does what it's supposed to. Drama is supposed to make you, anxious. Comedy is supposed to make you laugh. Porn is supposed to, help you get off or make you horny, and that's
Right.
what it does.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
It's interesting that the CMF, like the Canadian, in order to get tax credits and funding for your media project or TV show or whatever, the only way you can't the only shows that don't qualify for CMF funding is porn and reality shows,
Really? I didn't-
variety shows. Sorry, yeah,
True.
which is actually really
Do variety
interesting.
shows really still exist? Like, I haven't heard a show described as a variety show. in a
Have
long
you
time.
ever watched Saturday Night Live?
Oh, is that what they? okay.
That's a variety show. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it's not necessarily not
That
necessarily.
it's not like
that.
the old fashioned
It's not-
variety,
no,
but
of
it's like
course.
it's
It's
still
not like
yeah.
Sonny and Cher.
Yeah, that's a variety show. It's
I
just
see.
it's so interesting that it's not considered,
Yeah.
an actual legit genre.
But back to what you were saying, I think it makes I get it because it's like in the same way with cigarettes and alcohol and stuff like that. We put an age restriction on that, and for something we specifically put an age restriction on marijuana, tobacco, and alcohol because we already know it's very unhealthy, right? That's something that causes physical
Especially
damage and
for
stuff like
children.
that, especially for children. So. But in the idea that porn, I'll be a testament to that. It's definitely caused some sort of psychological problems and makes it more difficult to make you're trying to learn from it. But it's try and forget that stuff and learn past that. But it's definitely has it's unhealthy in the sense of mentally, especially at a young age when they're developing and stuff like that. They're gonna think that. Every sexual relation with someone is supposed to be how it's in porn.
So
would
I have a question. Oh, sorry, I just interrupted you.
yeah, I just wanted to ask a question, then I'll take.
So that's
your
why I
question.
do get your age restriction on porn, though. It makes sense. It
So
really
would you
does.
say though that porn at an appropriate age is okay, or is it also as bad as sin as Marshall mentioned?
It is a sin, not as
Yeah.
bad as sin.
should I have been watching it or I accidentally discovered it? I forget the age that I watched it, but it's I mean, do I want someone in grade 8 and grade 9 to be watching it? Not really, because grade 10, you kind of already you're kind of already coming into who you are as a person and stuff like that. Maybe something like porn, I don't know, but it's the thing though. It's weird because all of the porn sites you have to make your fake click yes, I'm over 18. When you're under 18, it's Like unless
Doesn't
like
matter. It's
it doesn't matter. People can
it's
still
an
click on
entirely
it.
artificial
Yeah,
barrier.
yeah.
You know.
Well, that's just so they don't get sued.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Protection.
but the question you want to ask.
No, so what I wanted to ask is that if you're saying that, because the whole reason why it's bad or whatever is because you can access it at a young age and it ruins your mindset of how relationships and being intimate with someone should be.
I mean, that's anecdotal from my personal experience.
right, no.
but, like,
So exactly,
yeah.
but I'm directing my question to you.
Okay.
Do you think that, if children were learning at a younger age about sexuality and we're learning more about, having sex at a younger age, when
Yeah.
you're learning about all this stuff and, then not necessarily like specifically being exposed, like putting your kid in front of a computer to watch it,
Yeah.
but like, like I was saying, like the feminist porn or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like to put them and show them for there to be the availability of something out there that is not, like scary, like rape porn,
Yeah.
but for there to be an availability of something that is realistic and does focus on relationships, like, wouldn't you think that would be more of a positive thing?
Oh, 100%. I think there is a category that's like I've seen it that's a bit more
Like feminist porn category.
kind of more like that. Not like in the same way that Tamara's talking about with the Toronto production company, but I like porn for women. I think it was the category. It's like it's a lot more like sexual than like hardcore, I guess is how I would say it. So like that's like yeah, that's better. I guess it's not as damaging to the psyche, at least for me. I don't know like
But I think when something's so forbidden, that's when it becomes so like, you want to do it, you want to watch it, you want to
Yeah.
sin, as
Yeah, you
Marshall
want
says.
what you can't have.
Yeah, you want what you can't have.
Yeah.
And I think keeping something, like banning something, would only make people want to like view it more.
no, they would just create a black market for it though.
And-
but that's why I'm saying like the first point of just like some sort of like actually like enforcing an age restriction makes sense though. I get it, but it's,
And that's certainly what we need to do. If we can have a conversation about the blocking the entire production, but the age restriction I see as entirely necessary.
yeah.
And going back to what you said, we're going to wrap up in about a couple minutes, but going back to what you said about wanting what you can't have, it actually, you can see it in, for example, the show called The Handmaid's Tale. I just started watching it yesterday. I saw the first episode. Incredible. And so you see...
What is it about?
It's about people that are called handmaids, and there was this kind of pollution type event that happened that that the majority of women cannot conceive anymore. They
Oh,
can't give
yeah,
birth.
okay.
And the handmaids are there to literally be like surrogates, right?
Surrogates
And they're
to
the rich
yeah.
and people, and
Okay,
they're like
okay.
slaves.
Yeah.
And so in the first episode, you can see one of the main characters, Yvonne Strahovski,
This is recent.
she plays.
This is new?
Well,
Or
it's
no?
2016.
No.
Okay,
it's
okay.
like-
But
Right.
one of the main characters, she, you can see her emotion of not being able to have a kid, right? So she has to watch her handmaid, the one they selected,
Yeah.
be impregnated by her husband.
And she gets to have
And
like,
so the handmaids.
Oh wow, okay.
It's a ceremony. It's not like too explicit, but it's
Yeah.
the ceremony. And for example, the handmaid is very unhappy with it because that's all they do. Whereas the woman who can't do it, she wants to have the kid
Yeah.
because she can't have it.
Yeah.
So it does, even in something fictitious as that, relates to
Well, it's
real
not
life.
fictitious.
No, the
That
show.
the show itself
fiction.
is.
The show, I mean,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
fiction. But your concept is not fictitious, is what
No,
I'm saying.
yeah.
But you can see it everywhere because art imitates life.
Wow, that was
Right.
deep.
yeah.
Thank you.
Jeez.
But very quickly, last question: does a change need to be made, or are we all right as a society? That's a very deep question, but
I think society has to always constantly improve itself. I don't agree with banning anime and porn like Marshall does.
I'm just kidding about
I'm
the
joking.
anime.
It's a running joke that we got.
That's
but,
what he likes. He likes the anime.
But yeah, like they're definitely like, porn doesn't have a lot of regulation right now, right? And like I thought like
other than sexual regulation in terms of STDs or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But it's like
What?
But in terms of production,
no,
it
no,
doesn't
wait.
have-
In terms of consumption is
Okay,
that's what
yeah.
we're talking about. Because yeah, there's needs to be something going on with it, and also there needs to be regulation with how like sex is being advertised. I remember like seeing some advertisements, just a picture of some girls, just literally the whole ass like in a bikini, and it was just like a juice that was like on top of it or something like that.
I've seen that.
Was
Yeah.
that like the Kim K
No,
picture?
No.
It was reminiscent of it.
Yeah,
but
but
it
it's like-
wasn't- yeah, I
but
know.
like-
I've seen. I don't know where I saw it.
You
but
saw
I
it in
know-
Maxim, bro.
No, I didn't
No?
see it. I've never read a Maxim magazine.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
talking about the magazine?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm
That's
just
never
gonna
read that.
say
Oh,
It's
okay.
so interesting being like the only woman in this room
Whatever.
right now.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Okay, fine,
I've
whatever.
never, literally in my life, consumed a pornographic
Yo,
magazine.
Maxim's actually a good magazine. Like, yeah, there's like like whatever.
Yeah, you
And
read it for the articles.
They actually do have good articles, but no, that's not why you read it. But okay. But the point is, there needs to be some sort of like something. Like we definitely do need to make some changes and stuff like that. 100%.
How about the parents take responsibility for their children, and if you don't want them seeing something, put an internet blocker on the computer. Or don't give your 2-year-old an iPhone or an iPad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
So
we're
that's a
putting this
societal
as
thing.
Is it a societal thing or is it a parental thing?
Well, no. If society is saying it's okay to give your kids an iPhone and to have them distracted, it is a
You're
societal
implicitly,
norm
You can
you're
have
nowadays.
implicitly
Soci-
saying that it's okay to look at whatever you want on the internet. Then,
Yep.
unless you're gonna
it's
do.
not. You can give an iPhone and put,
I
parental
know, but that's
block
what I'm
on
saying
it.
though. If you don't put the parental block on it, then
It's a parent's thing.
yeah, you're right.
Thankfully, internet blocks work far better today than they ever did, which
That's
is reassuring for
I have
sure.
a really funny story about internet block.
And for me, it's just like
Totally not related to this conversation.
I've made my stance clear. I do think that porn is literally psychological warfare, and I think it needs to be banned for that
I think
reason.
it's Satan. Satan himself.
You felt Satan in the room at
Yes.
the drag club.
Yes.
hey, it's different. That's different. Two different things.
and so yeah, no,
Wow.
it's got to go. But I'm also a pragmatist, and I realize that like that's not necessarily a solution that everybody's going to be cool with, at least for now. We have a lot of changes that we need to make in society. I think we live in a very sick society. And among the first, I would say, is to impose age restrictions on porn. That's for sure.
And Marshall, Tamara, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. You can't impose age restriction on something that you access so freely by means of the internet. It's just not possible to do that. I think that it goes back to what I was saying before, that if we're talking about the issue of kids accessing this kind of stuff, then it's on the parents. You need to do a better job at parenting if you don't want. Like, listen, your kid. It's inevitable you're going to come across it on the internet when you have access to this, but you can be a parent that chooses, to give so much access to your kid that they're going to stumble upon this, or you can, put internet block and not expose your children to this, or teach your kids about sex at a younger age and teach them about what a real relationship and what like, you don't have to go into all the details, but like if it's not like a no you can't do this is evil, it's terrible, then you're not going to look at it in that way, and the kid isn't going to the kid's going to be curious because you're a child, you have an inquisitive mind for sure, but they're not going to see it in the same kind of negative light as most people do, I think. And
And I think too that it is on parents and I think it is on society and us as consumers. And once again, that's why I say everybody should be listening and admiring Celine Dion. So that was our show for this week. A new episode of the Raben Report will be coming to you next week, same day, same time. Have a great day, everyone.